So I see that you made it to module 2. Woohoo! Congratulations, look at you go. All right, well, enough of that. So let's continue with a new lesson. Actually, we're kind of going to build on module 1 stuff. So make sure before you watch this video or series of videos that you review chapter 2 stuff. Take a look at understanding semantic elements, watch the 2 videos, read chapter 2 from the textbook, and also look at this chapter 2 text PDF. Let's start with this slide right here, slide number 7 from your chapter 2 text PDF. I want to talk about structural markup and semantic markup. If you recall from Lab 1B, which let me open that. Okay, while that's opening, if you recall, okay, that was quick. Let's talk about this then. If you recall, we marked up text with tags, like for example, this one in line 9, a simple sample web page, we marked it up with an opening H1 tag and a closing H1 tag. In doing so, we have given this page structure. We can tell just by looking at the different tags what this text is supposed to be. H1, we know that this is the main idea for this page, and anything else that follows would be something that supports that main idea. Going down the line, looking at H2, I know from looking at this that, oh, this one is a supporting idea to the H1, and that will continue if you keep going down the line. So that's what I mean by structure. We can tell the structure of a page just by looking at that. At the same time, by giving it appropriate markup tags, we are also giving appropriate, or not appropriate, we are also using tags that are appropriate to content meaning. Going back to the example of headings, by giving this line 9 an H1, or by using H1 tags on it, we are giving it meaning. We are saying that this is indeed a heading. And by putting H2 over here for hyperlinks, we are giving this meaning. We are saying that this is a subheading. Third bullet point here. Our goal for this class, as we're working on web pages, is to separate presentation from structure and meaning. So the first part of this video, I've been talking about structure and meaning, and it's been fairly easy to separate presentation from all that because, well, we haven't done anything with presentation. Presentation would be something that we let CSS handle, and we haven't got to that yet. We will get to that later, though. Actually, later on in this series of videos. So you will have some experience with CSS by the end of Lab 2. But for now, just keep that in mind that I want to separate what you see here, all this content that gives us structure and meaning. I want to separate the stuff, the code, that will give this some style. Because as of right now, when you preview your page, our Lab 1-2, or wait, Lab 1B, sheesh, it looks like a web page from, I don't know, 1997. So maybe you were around that time, maybe you weren't, but just kind of by looking at this, it looks interesting, doesn't it? It doesn't look anything like what you would normally see in 2017. It's missing that style. Right now, everything you're seeing here is the default. Since we haven't given presentation information, the web browser is left with no choice but to display all this good stuff using the defaults. But we'll fix that. We'll add some more style to this. Okay, next slide. As a web designer or developer, you might be tempted to mark up text just for the sake of presentation. Now, from the last series of videos, I talked about how you should not use heading tags, for example, just because you like how they look. For example, say you want to create a page and you like how H1 looks. You like how big that text looks compared to everything else. Well, if it's not a heading, if it's not meant to be an H1, then don't use that. What you need to use instead is CSS. If you want something to look a certain size or be bold, but it's not actually a heading. Okay, so besides being useful by adding meaning to whatever it is that we mark up, it's also fairly important because it gives extra information to programmers and also to the computer that will be looking at your code. For programmers, they're going to look at your code and say, oh, okay, this is what this person's trying to do. As for web browsers, when they look at your code and they land upon something, then they're going to have an idea of what that text is supposed to mean. Two examples of markup tags that have that purpose would be M, this EM tag, or strong. When you mark up something with the M tag or the strong tag, you're giving it more information. Let's start with M. This one is meant to be used for text that's supposed to be emphasized. And the effect that it has by default is that it makes characters appear in italic. When your web browser runs across text that has the EM tags around it, then that web browser knows that this text is meant to be emphasized. And this is especially useful for people that rely on screen readers. These screen readers will see that, and it will emphasize that text somehow to the person using that. So it might say it a little differently than the rest of the text that it reads. Same thing with strong. This is meant for text that has strong importance. So if you think about textbooks, for example, printed textbooks, when something is an important word, it usually appears in bold. It's strong. Just like the EM tag, the M tag, if your web browser sees that screen reader, it will know to say it differently so that the person who relies on screen readers will have a better idea that this text is supposed to be important. And just like the whole idea behind using correct tags for headings, it'll be the same thing for these types of semantic markup tags that also have the effect of changing how text looks. If you want something to be italicized, but it's not really meant to be emphasized, you just like it because it looks good, then don't use this M tag. What you should use instead is CSS to control that. Same thing with strong. Don't put the strong tags around something just because you like how it looks, just because you like how it makes text appear in bold. If you want something to be bold, but it's not necessarily text that has strong importance, then use CSS for that. More semantic markup tags. For the rest of the class, we will be using these tags right here, and mostly header, main, footer, and nav. We will have an opportunity to use all of that in Lab 2.